Good morning, participants. I am Nala, and in behalf of my colleagues at Rockbird Media, it is a pleasure to welcome all of you. After experiencing the initial effects of the pandemic back then, talks about business continuity began, and until now, we find ourselves in conversations about this due to the dramatic changes that happen around us, and our businesses have to, of course, keep up. Through investment in technology, in spite of budgetary constraints, leaders are finding more ways to address the ongoing challenges posed by the pandemic. And you will hear more through this virtual roundtable session titled Leveraging Automation to Provide Operational Resilience in a World of Dropping Budgets, which is in partnership with ServiceNow. But before I hand over to our speakers, I'd like to quickly remind everyone about the following. We'd really love to see your lovely faces, so kindly turn on your camera. And of course, kindly mute your devices while our speakers are talking to avoid background noise. But please don't be shy if you have any insights. You may unmute your devices and introduce yourselves before speaking. You may as well send us via chat any questions, or if you have, or if you're experiencing any, technical difficulties. Also, an exciting prize will be given out. All you've got to do is be with us, take part, and complete the survey to be showed in a while. Lastly, you may notice that there is a live on custom streaming device on your screen, but rest assured, this is for internal viewing only, not for public. So, to officially kick off this virtual session, we have with us the Jonathan De Luzuriaga, the president of Philippine Software Industry Association, an industry representative for over a decade and has contributed immensely to the country's growth and development in the technology and innovation sector. Together with him is Peter Duherty, an ITIL V2 master. He's also an ITIL V3 expert and a contributing author to the ITIL V3 Service Operations book and a principal consultant with ServiceNow. So handing over now to Jonathan.
Thank you, Nella, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to our audience. Depends on where you are in the world today. I'm very honored to be invited once again by Rockbird Media. Of course, this is in partnership with ServiceNow to talk about something that is quite relevant in today's business environment. I'm also honored to be speaking alongside Peter Doherty, who is an expert. So reserve all your questions, especially those technical ones, to Peter here. And hopefully I fulfill my role in giving a context in terms of what's happening in the world and what's happening in the Philippines. So I think I'm speaking to the choir when I say, these are very challenging times, and everyone is trying to make ends meet by ensuring that they deploy the right set of technologies in order to keep their businesses floating and their heads above water, so to speak. And with this, you are basically looking at an environment right now that is quite unique and has never been experienced technically in the near future, in the near past. And we've looked at all the different movements, both globally and domestically, to make some sense out of all of this. I think the topic chosen for today's discussion is quite relevant, leveraging technologies, right, to basically, while at the same time looking at the dropping budgets. And that's not something that's supposed to scare or alert anyone. But for those in the IT services and the software development sector, Uh, I think this resonates quite well, primarily since a lot of people from the offline side of the equation are now scrambling to go online. And the topic, leveraging automation to provide operational resilience in a world of dropping budgets, resonates quite well, most especially for us who are more or less tasked to ensure that the industry's growth continues. So, what is really happening in the world? That's technically, if I dissect the topic, there's leveraging automation to provide operational resilience, and on the other side is actually dropping budgets. Apparently, despite the fact that everyone was more or less forced or even manhandled to go into a digital transformation as fast as they can, what the world is seeing right now is an unprecedented contraction of the global market. So one of the things that we do on an annual basis as part of PSIA, which is part of a much larger organization called IBPAP, or the IT Information Technology Business Process Association of the Philippines, is that we try to keep tabs on the movement all over the world in terms of how markets have been growing and contracting. This puts into focus also what we need to focus on as a country in terms of grabbing the next big opportunity. I've been head of the Philippine Software Industry Association for the past 6 years, and I've been part of industry leadership for the past 2 decades. And I've seen the stellar growth of the Philippines grow from technically less than 10,000 people doing IT and BPO services in the country to where it is now. It's a behemoth of 1.3 million directly employed individuals doing various types of services for different geographies. And apparently, we now see that this market is slowly contracting. And what we are seeing now is that it also reflects on the Philippine market. Apparently, even the market leader in IT services, which is India, is also going through the same set of challenges. For the Philippines, when we went into the various modes of community quarantine starting March, we saw the efficiency of the industry drop to almost ridiculous levels that we haven't seen before. The Philippines, of course, is no stranger to this thing called resiliency, being visited by almost 20 plus typhoons every year, various forms of natural calamities, and we seem to bounce back quite well despite all of these challenges. However, I don't think anyone in the world right now could basically claim that they were ready for something as impactful and as large as COVID-19. Hence, we saw the productivity of the industry drop to levels of about 20%, most especially during the first part of the lockdown. And then gradually, as we adjusted, we are now, and I'm happy to report this, almost close to 90% in terms of productivity. Although the lay of the land has changed. A majority of this, a huge chunk, more than 50%, is actually delivering services from the home. And I think hopefully Peter could shed some light in terms of how you could leverage that for your own company and make it work like a well-oiled machine. The Philippine situation apparently, in terms of growth, is measured technically under two metrics. One is in terms of headcount that it produces, and the second one is in terms of the revenue that it contributes to the Philippines coffers. So from a headcount perspective, we're still looking at from today until 2022, which is the end of our strategic roadmap called Accelerate Philippines. We're still looking at a growth rate of about 4.5 to about 5%. And from a revenue perspective, we're looking at about 5% to about 5.5. Now, it's almost that, there's some level of discrepancy between the two numbers. And I know for those of you who are keeping tabs on the US elections, you're sick and tired of probably hearing about all of these numbers and percentages. But nevertheless, let me run you through what is eventually happening. As it relates to our topic today, a lot of companies are looking at automation to ensure that the services that they promise to their clients and customers are still going to be delivered no matter what. And sometimes the uh, the as they go through this transformation, one of the probable impacts is that they will use more technology than they will use more people. The Philippines, when you look at the lay of the land, the huge chunk of the services that's being rendered from the country is actually in the contact center space, which is the most susceptible to disruption, primarily because some of the things that is being delivered from contact centers are more or less more easily automated than the other segments of the IT BPM industry. Just this morning, I received a white paper coming from WITSA, which is the World Information Technology Services Alliance. And one of the call outs of that particular paper is the need for the world to be connected and the special role of government to pull the trigger on this and ensure that their respective country environments are embracing this digital journey. So, in as much as we could see that there's still going to be some growth, it's not the same growth pattern that us in the IT BPM industry in the Philippines have experienced for the past 15, 20 years. We were looking at years before that, we could experience 20, 25% compound annualized growth rates year on year. And gone were those days for several reasons. One is that we have a much larger base right now, so the incremental growth is much smaller than what we've seen when the trajectory was quite spectacular. And second is that things are changing. Things are changing very rapidly, and discussions like what we're having today is very important so that business owners and enterprises would know what options they have in order for them to remain competitive and even use this as a leverage for further growth. But as they say, and this particular adage is oftentimes overused, the only thing constant is really change. And if you're still not open to the idea that you need to make tweaks and adjustments uh, in terms of the way forward, because normal, as we used to know normal, is not really going to come back, despite the fact that there are several uh, very positive announcements coming from companies like Moderna and Pfizer that a vaccine is going to be available. One of the things that pops into the heads of folks like me is, what about the logistical challenges of this? And we're not talking just about the physical assets of moving vaccines from the source to the different countries, but we're also talking about how do we now apply a certain level of governance. And that would take a lot of technological support in order for an initiative of this magnitude to be quite successful. So I'm not going to uh, you know proceed anymore with all of these uh, theories, because there's a guy next to me who's scheduled to speak that has a more practical approach in terms of dealing with the current situation right now. Once again, I'd like to thank Rockbird Media and ServiceNow for allowing me to be part of this discussion. Nala, back to you.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's a pleasure also for us to have you. So, um, let's move on to the interactive discussion. And may I request our participants to turn on their camera so we can see each other as we go along the questions for today's session. So, the first one would be, for our first question is, how is your company coping with the next normal? Do you have the technology roadmap in place to ensure business continuity? So, Jonathan or Peter, would you like to start sharing anything in regards to this question.
Okay, let me first take a stab at this, Peter, or would you rather have this one?
So I'll take a stab to start with, and then you could add to it a little bit if you like, Jonathan.
Sure, Peter, please go ahead.
Well, firstly, thank you for everyone for having me along. I love these sessions because it's very important to share this information, because this isn't just about the well-being of organizations. It's the well-being of the communities that we serve, the citizens and the customers that we serve. So it's part of a much bigger thing. Now, I've been with ServiceNow for close to 9 years, and I spend a great deal of time helping organizations with their digital transformation. And one of the things that really became obvious at the beginning of this pandemic is how resilient people are. How resilient people are able to change their working conditions, take on new loads, having these meetings from their bedroom, running the things that they did from their lounge room with their kids running around with them. So people tend to be very, very resilient. The challenge is, though, that as people move out of the offices and move away from environments where everything is set up and controlled, the systems that they had are nowhere near as resilient. So we were quite fortunate with ServiceNow. So there's about 13,000 of us worldwide. 95% of those people work in offices, secure networks, everything that you need to set up on your desktops for you and everything like that. So within a matter of weeks, we switched from being a 10, 12,000 person office bound organization to a remote employment, where people were sitting, having breakfast with their kids while they were trying to do their work. We found that going to that new environment, a whole heap of new things became really important to us. Zoom became a mission critical tool for us, that we were running our internal business on Zoom. We were now using things like Miro. We run enormous development organizations that the majority of them were in India, which was heavily impacted by this. So we had to very quickly change our mode of delivering our business services to being able to work from home, being able to collaborate from home. And if anything happened to any of those services, we just didn't have the scale to go and throw people at it to fix it. So because we are a platform that automates a lot of processes across the IT supply chain and into different other platforms, we very quickly realized that automation, we have to leverage our own platform to automate as much as proper as we could. So as we moved into the home workspace, VPNs became very important to us. We have highly secure and critical data that we need to share. So everyone has to be in a VPN. If something goes wrong with the VPN, you can't be waiting in a queue for a service desk that may have long lead times to do that. So we looked at how we automated the resolution of VPN issues. We looked at when you come out of Zoom, you give it a little thumbs up, thumbs down. And we then started to push that into machine learning to look at areas that were having challenges with Zoom, so we could be very, very proactive in doing it. And we then moved very quickly and automated a lot of systems. Now, a lot of our customers are across many different industries. And one of the ones that you would especially know that got hit hardest is the customer service industry, the call centers. I moved into a new house at the beginning of the pandemic, and because one of the process centers was in India for my telco, they couldn't process my order. So I was virtually there for 10 days, 2 weeks without being able to get broadband access to do my work, which was a pretty stressful time for me. So one of the things that I'm doing another session next week talking about the CIOs and how they've got to start planning around these sort of things. So CIOs have now really got to start looking at the broader supply chain of services to their customers or to their employees. They've got to look to working with the business more and understand the business modeling behind the supply chain and look at where there is disconnects, look at where there's areas that they were able to automate and drive efficiencies across this. Because the other thing that a lot of customers had when they first moved into remote working is that they realized that they have so many business critical processes that still rely on people to do handoffs and do those things. And when they're not together, they're remote, that those processes became a great deal of stress. So we learned a lot from those things. We accelerated our machine learning to be able to be very predictive and where we would have trouble spots. And because we couldn't bring on lots and lots of extra people, we then made an even bigger investment in the own virtual agent technology that sits in our platform. So we started off by really pushing and deflecting a whole heap of workflow in through virtual agents, where virtual agents would then do a lot of the automation. And as we looked to coming out of the pandemic, as we looked to improving the productivity and efficiency across processes, because ServiceNow is a platform that integrates with multiple other systems, we looked at large complex supply chains across our processes that integrate with multiple different platforms. And we started and driving automation across multiple different platforms. So, one of the big challenges is firstly getting everything up and running and being resilient, being able to, if something does fail, being able to have your continuity plans that is very tightly connected in with data center infrastructure automation to go and be able to bring those services back up, but also being able to look at the whole supply chain of course how you provide a service, to whether it's a customer, to whether it's an internal employee. Look at the points that you can automate and go and automate those things. And we have successfully now in a position where we're making it not mandatory for people to go back into an office. We've set up the systems, the automation, leverage machine learning, artificial intelligence, virtual agents, so that I can sit here in my work office in Melbourne and have connectivity and collaboration with my colleagues across the world, knowing that we've automated a lot of the infrastructure event detection to make sure those business services are resilient, and things that I need to get done quickly, I can automate through requests through my virtual agents. For me, I'm looking at getting 2 to 3 hours a day back in commuting time, because I probably won't go back into an office for more than a couple of days a month.
Let me just add a little bit to that, Peter, and thanks for that perspective. I oftentimes say in talks that I've been invited to, that the pandemic brought with it a magnifying glass. So it magnified a lot of things, magnified our strengths and our weaknesses, both as enterprises and as individuals. And it also magnified one very peculiar thing, which is how well we know our people, how well we know our processes. And apparently, in the mad scramble for companies, most especially in the Philippines, where 99% of all enterprises are actually in the micro, small, medium category, they're now scrambling to go online. And from an individual standpoint, if you're working for somebody, the new business environment has shown a light in terms of how important you are to your organization. If you're doing something that could easily be replicated or could easily be automated, chances are you're one of the few people. You're one of the people who are technically trying to make some sense out of your existence right now. Second is for companies now. Thanks to technology and automation in particular, they've now found new, novel, creative ways to actually reach out to their customers. So that's one of the things that has really changed the landscape in terms of the past 9-10 months already. And I guess we've seen a lot of companies. It's quite funny in a Philippine setting, and this just happened. This just happened last week. We were hit by a very, very bad storm. And apparently, it brought about a lot of challenges in terms of connectivity and even electricity. So what used to be part of a company's business continuity plan, which is to enable workers to work from home and deliver services from their respective houses, has done a reverse during a uh, uh, climate issue on top of a pandemic. So now they're recalling their people to come back to the offices because the offices are the ones that would have, redundant power supply and, reliable connectivity. So again, they're going back to their respective homes right now as, things begin to normalize. But it's not something that we've seen in the past decade or so. And I guess, to Peter's point, everything that could be automated right now is going to go in that direction, whether, this situation changes overnight. And lastly, there's a very strong realization for all companies that most of the things that they were doing could actually be done in a more efficient manner. Before, it was very disrespectful to have sales pitches or do account management via online platforms like Zoom or Google Meet. But right now, because of the restrictions in terms of mobility, this seems to be the norm, and I don't think it's going to switch back as fast as it actually brought us here.
So Jonathan, you made an interesting point there about people being required to return to work, because that's where all the resilience, redundancy has been put in and the systems in place. So the thing that's often forgotten about resilient business services that are the people that play a part in delivering those services. It's not just about the technology, the back end, the redundancy, the high availability, failover, cloud-based, all those sort of things. There are human beings that play often a frontline role in that. So now we're facing a situation where we're looking at asking them over time to return to work. And the vast majority of those people have a safety concern about returning to work because they've been in isolation, they've been doing social distancing, everything like that. So this is another challenge to the business, is how do you safely return your people to work? So we have set up, using our platform again, a return to workplace application, which will manage the staging of people coming into the office. It'll manage the contact tracing. So if people are in a certain area or in conference rooms, it manages all the contact tracing. We require people to take, what you call it, thermometer, temperature things. So as you walk in, a lot of buildings will have a temperature scan, being able to integrate that into the platform if you're within the certain variants that you're not allowed, not only are you not allowed into the building, but then they start doing contact tracing, managing all the personal protection equipment. Look at the level of governance around the people that we're going to have to do, bringing them back into the office. And it's not something that you can throw more people at or you can run by spreadsheets. That is another process that you want to automate. So you have a duty of care to those employees or the people that come into your offices. So firstly, making sure it's safe to come in, making sure that there's regular cleaning, keeping all that as automated as possible. And then if you, in the unfortunate event of having a positive reading, to be able to go and respond quickly and have the processes in place that minimize the impact of those sort of things. So that's something that we're using the platform as well. And a lot of people are struggling with how do they get people back into the office safely and keep them safe.
That's absolutely magnificent, Peter. So you're basically saying that ServiceNow has prepared for the transition to our current state right now, but at the same time anticipating that it might do the reverse. So in essence, you plan for two transitions, going out
Yes.
and then coming in.
Yeah.
So just a little bit of a joke here. Hopefully, you guys could also plan for a presidential transition platform. So it makes it easier for
think
other countries.
that's probably going to happen in about a year or so time, isn't it?
So, Nella, are there any more questions that you'd like to ask? Almost especially Peter here, who's
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan and Peter. Your insights are
Library
very,
of knowledge.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So before we move on to the next question, which is now flashed on the screen, I'd like to invite our delegates if they'd like to, say a few or say a quick brief about themselves. Shall we start with do we have here Eugene Aurelio? So and the others or anyone who might want to say anything or like introduce themselves, or if you would like to answer this question as well, please feel free, just unmute yourselves and give a quick introduction about yourself.
Both Jonathan and I would love to hear some of your comments about how you are doing that digital transformation. It's not just about hearing from us.
So I think we got a couple of participants here from very large organizations in the Philippines, and we would love to really hear on your journey throughout these very challenging times.
Yeah, hello, good morning. This is Jaya.
Hello,
Jan.
Jaya.
Yeah, can you hear me? Thank you, Peter, and sorry, I forgot your
John.
name. Jonathan.
Jonathan.
Thank you, Peter and Jonathan, for the introduction. Very nice introduction. I just like to say that I came from two industries. The first one is the broadcast media industry, and then the other one is the education industry. So, um, let me try to share the current situation first with the education industry. So, in terms of people, process, and technology, for people, um, generally physical presence is really impossible right now, so everything is done online, so we have to redo our modules, we have to um, recalibrate the normal things that we did before in order for us to cater to our students. And I think one of the challenges is really engagement, like what's happening now in this discussion. So I think uh, virtual or virtual kind of make things difficult in terms of engaging people to participate. So that's a challenge. Um, in terms of the technology, we do have adopted different productivity tools as well as learning management modules and video conferencing systems such as Zoom. So that's the situation of the educational industry, at least the industry that I am part of. So we do synchronous, which is similar to this, and also asynchronous lectures and lessons, wherein our students would have to log in and do the lessons at their own pace. So that's the existing situation for the education. Now for the content and the broadcast, to say that we have dropping budget is the understatement of the year. So yeah, so what we have to do actually for the people, we have to be multi hats and multi skilled because we had a lot of layoffs in the past. And in terms of the processes, we have to automate the entire value chain. So from the content creation to distribution. And we have also to pivot digitally from the traditional broadcast to digital broadcasting. So yeah, technology in essence has become very important to the industry and to the company that I work with. Content creation has become online. So I think for the two industries that I am part of, the lessons now really is we'll have to relearn and recalibrate everything. And we have to do it as fast as we can. So the challenge is how to do it as fast and as agile as we can, given that we came from quite traditional workflows.
Thank you, Jaya. No? Let me
Yeah.
let me just comment on the two industries that you highlighted. So first, I'm a frustrated educator, and I really wanted to teach, but the problem was before that it's going to take so much time, and I'm jumping from one island in the Philippines or one country to the next. and it seems to be quite impossible. But now, thanks to limited mobility, one of the universities here in the Philippines actually signed me up, so I begin teaching January, which is a fulfillment of one of my aspirations. So, one story of getting an opportunity out of this, doom and gloom scenario that we have. And on the second piece, I'd like to ask you a question. Do you think for the media, for broadcast media, do you think it's going to revert back to its original form once the dust settles, or do you think this is going to be the norm right now?
I would love to think that this would be the norm, wherein everyone would be pivoting digitally. But in terms of the existing market, if I would say that it's still very traditional for the existing market, wherein we the broadcasters or the agencies would advertise via the traditional media instead of the digital media.
So you could see that that's still going to be an area where a lot of disruption is going to happen within the next couple of years.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
But the reality of this though is that budgets have been slashed dramatically when it comes to advertising,
Yes,
viewership,
not just
and
slashed.
cost of
Yeah,
acquisition. So now that everyone's a content creator, the marketplace seems to be open to everyone now. So
exactly. Exactly. That's a good point. Everyone is a content creator nowadays. Even us, even this one. This one is content. You just have to record this and then post it online. This is now a content, right?
Yeah, I
thank you
think
for your inputs, Peter. Would like to add
yeah.
to this conversation?
Yeah, so education one is one that's particularly disturbing because they didn't have very high budgets to start with. So they were really constrained what they could do. So for them, it was looking at moving quickly away to things like Zoom, to things like remote collaboration. But unfortunately, for a lot of that, you probably don't, the people that are using it aren't trained, the presenters aren't trained in using some of the great things that you can do with Zoom from a collaboration perspective. So it's often very easy to get Zoom burnout, which I get all the time. So there's the humanistic side of that. How do you keep your students engaged and collaborating when you're in virtually, these Zoom meetings all the time? So there's challenges there. One of the big cost factors that educational institutions have is software costs. So I don't know if you know much about the process of application portfolio management. So it's looking at your whole portfolio of all the software, all the applications that you have across the environment. And this is something that enterprise architects do quite a lot. They then look to see where they can rationalize, where you're duplicating different applications and you can rationalize them and retire some and expand some others. So software asset management becomes very, very important when you're looking at your portfolio. Where are you going to make more money to spend? Where's the best place to reduce? Because often organizations, they don't grow organically in all the software that they have. Different places buy different things. So software asset management starts becoming a very key area and freeing up budget to go and do some things. And from the broadcasting industry, content creation, from content creation to delivery, a lot of the time that's manual processes. There's manual processes. Whenever you have manual processes, there's going to be time delays. It slows down the velocity. So what those sort of industries are doing, and we work with some as well, that look to how do you go and automate those handoffs? The specific people doing the work, they can work in their own places, but look at how you accelerate the handoffs, the sending information, the assigning of tasks, the getting things done. So you improve the velocity without having to add people to it, and actually take some of the people workload out of it to make it much more efficient.
But Peter, that's also where the challenge is right now, because if you're a CTO or if you're a CIO, your mastery used to be around 4 or 5 aspects of the entire operations. And now, because of these challenges in the situation, things get added to your plate in terms of now you have to be very, very knowledgeable in terms of which video platforms to use, how to secure data in terms of your work from home workforce, and so on and so forth. So before, as long as your NOC is working quite well, you've got your cloud deployment quite set up. Your email servers are working according to expectation. You could go on vacations. Now there's a lot of knowledge that needs to be acquired instantaneously. To JS point, it has to be very fast. So
Yeah.
what's your experience from a ServiceNow perspective in terms of people now approaching you, CIOs and CTOs, saying, guys, you got to help me out. This is a totally different ballgame.
Yeah, so for us, it's exposed a lot of CIOs who have had a very technology focus on, we just manage the technology and the infrastructure. And there's a lot of areas that still do that, where what has actually accelerated is the digital transformation that CIOs and CDOs and CTOs have been talking about for some time, and maybe not accelerating as quickly as possible. So they now need to start having much more of a business lens on how they deliver their services to their internal customers, their stakeholders. Looking at, firstly, you want to raise the productivity and the efficiency of the employee. So how do I take an inward focus and look at all the different services that my internal employees work on, and how can I give them a fairly automated single place to go in and consume all those sort of things? Take the guesswork out of where people have to do that. How do they transform the employee experience? Making not just IT, but making the whole of the organization much more productive. And when I talk about experience, I'm talking about the frictionless delivery of an outcome, not about putting a nice GUI up there or something like that. It's delivering an outcome that they need to do their job. So this is the one key focus that they're going to have to look at and spend much more time, not about the technology, about delivering outcomes. The other lens is the customer lens, or the citizen lens if you're a government organization. What are the services that you're providing to them? Now, a lot of those CIOs have in the past helped those different, like the call centers, help them go and do evaluation on call center software. And where they've found that has really affected them badly in the pandemic is that the call center, or the CRM, is really good for the company to do cross-sells, upsells, those sort of things, and very good at an engagement layer, but it doesn't really help the customers when they need to get things done that traverse multiple middle and back office. Because call centers concentrate on the engagement layer. Anything that goes beyond that is a challenge for them. And the CIO is the one who sits there that has the end-to-end perspective of that supply chain. So what we're finding now is more and more are trying to move away from a disconnected engagement layer with a messy middle of manual processes and put them all on a single platform that manages it all the way through. The CIO is also going to start having to learn about what are the new skill sets their organization is going to need, moving away from some of the traditional things and looking at reskilling some people. And the other thing, of course, is leading organizational change. This is a massive organizational change program that needs to go with this. It's not just about throwing automation, virtual agents, machine learning. It's about enabling the rest of the organization to be able to adopt that.
Those are very valuable inputs, Peter. And I think it goes without saying that in the past, a CIO or a CTO is more or less constrained to a vendor management relationship level. Mm-hmm. And now, apparently, one of my bold predictions based out of coming out of this conversation is that I could see more CIOs and CTOs eventually become CEOs because of the valuable role that they are playing in this particular juncture. Now, we were talking about, before it was just constrained to an engagement layer, and now you have to have, and it was a very myopic view, and now you have a total end-to-end, almost UI UX type of approach in terms of, not only what your customers are asking for, or what your top level stakeholders are asking for. But now even the people around you are very valuable pieces of the equation.
Yeah, so the
So thank
CIO
you.
is going to be invaluable in automating the end-to-end supply chain of service delivery.
Thank you, Peter. Nella, are there any more difficult questions that you would like to throw our direction?
Well, before I do that, Jonathan and Peter, thanks for, yeah, it's true that it was a valuable sharing. So how about maybe, before we move to the next question, maybe we could hear from Eugene or Rodrigo or Jeffrey, whoever who is, interested or,
Eugene's
would
come
like to
off
say.
mute.
Would like to,
Yeah.
please go ahead.
Hello, Eugene here. Yeah. You're all correct. My signal is a bit choppy. So really the challenge during this time is one is how do you keep your workforce engaged, especially you have to deal them remotely, and how do you protect your valuable talents because they are now exposed to all outside world. Second is how do you protect your data information that you want to make sure it's doesn't leak out. And certainly with this technology, how do you ensure that everything is in order? And especially dealing with the young generation, they become more mobile. This is the word they love. No? And they want this kind of environment. It gives them a lot more freedom. Uh, they're more liberated, and certainly it's something companies like the Miracle Group can leverage on. But the point here is it's a big challenge in the IT, how to keep all of this engaged at the same time, try to protect this talent, and try to protect all your necessary assets, information, and data, and putting the right technology and ensuring this, big companies, they're forced to digitize so fast. They have to look on the process. They have to look at organization. They have to review all the policies back. And this really has to be done soon. So pandemic brings all this opportunity at the same time. Introduces a lot of chaos. Uh, well, for the new small companies, this is good news because they can easily position themselves. But unlike for big companies, you have to look a lot of things, no? Process, people, structure, organization. So yeah, what you're trying to tell here is they're all right. They're all correct. That's true. Yeah.
Thank you,
Eugene.
Yes,
Sorry,
yes.
Eugene brings up a very interesting point, and that's about the whole security perspective of business service resilience. And one of the things that it sort of makes me sad to see that as we went into the pandemic, the amount of phishing attacks and scams and everything went up,
Yeah.
that people would take advantage of their fellow individuals when it's going through a bad period like this. And what a lot of the companies have realized is that they have been throwing a lot of money at the first line of defense with monitoring, intrusion detection, threat analysis tools, and all that. Where they have been maybe not as attentive is automating the processes in the back end when something does happen. So, they react to a security threat or a breach instead of having a set of automated playbooks that they can go and respond very quickly, go and isolate parts of the networks, go and replace the vulnerabilities. This is a great time for industries to have a very strong vulnerability management play and use this time to go and remediate as many vulnerabilities as they can, but oftentimes they don't have the information. IT is told to go and remediate these vulnerabilities, but IT doesn't have the context of the business systems or servers that these vulnerabilities are running on, or in some cases, they don't even know who owns the servers. So it makes it very, very difficult for them. So this is also sending an acceleration on people in moving past the first line of defense and detection to more into looking at how they can automate the response to a lot of these threats. So it's a very important portion of business resilience.
Thank you again for your inputs, Eugene, and for validating some of the discussion points that we've had gone through in the past couple of minutes. Eugene, let me just ask you a question. You're with the Meralco Group, right?
Yes, I am.
So that makes your role doubly more important because you're also part of the enabling environment in order for us to survive these very turbulent times. No? So
Yeah.
I'm assuming that the workload has quadrupled for you guys there, and uh, on behalf of the nation, thank you very much for being on top of the situation, most especially during particular calamities like what we experienced last week.
Yeah, agree. And as mentioned earlier, everyone is a content creator now. For this creator, uh, clients, people, employees, they should be able to decipher which are the true content, which are the right content. There's so many informations coming in and out. So even to our customers. So since it's an open world, people can introduce a lot of uh, content, whether this is right, distorted. So it's also an opportunity for us. How do we handle all this? So this involves a lot of social engineering, not purely IT. Some are policy related, process related. So with all this chaos, information chaos around us, how do we put order on this and to be able to target the right information to the market? So because with the internet, with the social media, it's so fast to create content. Whether this will make or break your company, you don't know. So that's why you need to have good partners around you also to help you manage this. So this is where you have to rely to several partners outside to be able to bring about your business objective. Yeah, correct.
Thank you again, Eugene. Number one, thanks for being here and sharing your thoughts about the topic for this discussion. Second, a little bit of trivia for those who are listening. No? Meralco has been an integral part in terms of the IT services history of the Philippines. Back in the day, everyone of technically who's who in the IT services and software development sector right now more or less has his or her roots embedded in Meralco. Am I correct, Eugene, in saying that?
Yeah.
So
So we've
thank you.
been into several business transformation involving process, IT transformation. So the journey continues, doesn't stop.
Agree. And we wish you the best of luck in all of the directions that your group will pursue. So thank you once again, Eugene.
Yeah.
Nella?
Thank you, Eugene. So how about we hear from Christian or Rodrigo, who I see here is from Emperador. So may we invite Rodrigo to say anything or share his insight. Or maybe Christian or Jeffrey.
I think they're indisposed for the moment, Nella. So
Yeah.
we would have loved to get inputs from them in terms of what their company has gone through.
Mm-hmm.
And
So, sorry.
yes,
So
please.
we have actually 10 minutes more to cater a question. So we are flashing a question. So So it says how digital transformation affects the continuity of business operations. Maybe Jonathan or Peter would like to answer this first, and then maybe Jeffrey or Christian from our participants, or even Rodrigo would like to share after you.
I think I'll let my my good mate Peter take a stab at this first. Peter.
All right, can you place that up again? Because I thought Jonathan would start off first. I thought I've been talking too much. Okay, how digital transformation affects the continuity of business operations. So this becomes the core point of a lot of things that we do, in that firstly, to have business continuity, you need to understand the business services that you're running. Right? So IT departments have been challenged for a long time in being the technology that they've been using to go and do infrastructure discovery and put it into their service management tools. It for a long time is either lacked the ability to understand what a business service looks like, or if it could understand the business service, it was very, very complex in how you go about discovering it and mapping it. So from business continuity, they could discover assets and infrastructure, but it was a manual process of doing a lot of mapping, or sometimes it was hard to do. So we invested in technology in our platform. So when ServiceNow goes and buys a company, we re-platform it onto the ServiceNow platform. So it utilizes the one database, the one workflow, the one experience, the one look and feel, everything like that. So we use a pattern-based technology that you point the discovery tool at the entry point of a service, and it'll do a surgical discovery, going down, finding only the pieces of infrastructure that supports that business service. So that is really vital when you have maybe a fault detected on a monitoring tool, or someone rings up, so as that you can focus in on the business service that is being affected. And so instead of going and responding that a piece of infrastructure is having a fault, you know that that piece of infrastructure is directly related to my foreign exchange business service. So it's a very, very high priority. And then being able to manage the process of resolving that as quickly as possible. So that's about understanding what those business services look like and having the resilience to go and fix them quickly. Now, the other part of fixing them quickly is by having automated playbooks that will go and automate some of the triage and the response of going down and running scripts on servers or restarting parts of the network. So the key foundation is understanding what those business services are. And as Eugene said before, if we are using a monitoring tool for vulnerabilities, to understand that when we get an alert coming in that IP address 1.20.27.27 host name has this vulnerability, being able to quickly go in and see where it is, and then being able to have those monitoring tools be fed into a single place, and using machine learning and artificial intelligence to go and learn about the behavior of those different components that support the business service, and then be able to detect when there's anomalies. So generally monitoring tools, what they do, they'll say CPU is too high, memory is too low, network is throughput is too high, but they'll be all the same metrics. Whereas once you start learning about the normal behavior of a piece of infrastructure supporting a business service, what you then quickly are able to identify anomalies. And those anomalies tells you something different has happened. Over time, you can then, using machine learning again, correlate those anomalies through effects on a business service to start making predictions that that business service will be impacted at some stage. So foundational stuff is spending a lot of time understanding those business services. Take them out of Visio diagrams, take them out of spreadsheets, take them out of PowerPoints that are stuck up in a support team's office, and share them with all the different people that need to do that. Then the next thing, of course, is when you look at some of those business services, which are now the non-traditional ones. So when we we started up an office in Korea beginning of this year. So we started onboarding people, more and more people. And of course, there was no office for them to go to at that stage because everyone was working from home. So their laptops had to get sent to home. So we then automated all the VDI implementation, all the VPN. If anything goes wrong with any of those things, we had automated playbooks to go and fix those things for them. So it's about looking at all those processes that you need to automate across the response and remediation to various issues to those services and drive them through machine learning, drive them through virtual agents, and automate the heck out of any of those processes. So you have velocity, fix it, and you're not waiting on people on service desks or a support team to do those things.
Thank you, Peter. I'll tackle that question on two layers. One is from a country BCP level, and the other one is from a company, as I observed within the companies that make up the PSIA community. First, just to answer that directly, BCP has immensely contributed to the contraction that we could see in the services sector. The Philippines is a very strong contender in the services sector across the various segments of the IT BPM industry. So we're number one in contact center. We're number two in IT services next to India. We've got a very strong animation industry. We've got a very promising game development industry. We are relatively reliable in healthcare information management because of the fact that we produce a lot of healthcare workers year on year. And we've become attractive to the shared services business units from multinational companies, mostly, U.S. Top 500 corporations that have set up shop here in the country. And part of the contraction that we've seen is because we haven't really put up a very strong case in terms of our readiness when it comes to such situations. And again, we may pat ourselves on the back and say, we're not the only one hit, but that's not supposed to be the mindset. We're supposed to stand on our own and benchmark against ourselves in terms of what do we do. The last thing that you want in any given situation wherein the business environment presents a very overwhelming challenge is for people to be looking around and saying, what are we going to do next? Now, one of the major mistakes from an organizational level is that business continuity planning and disaster recovery is usually relegated to the IT departments. That's not supposed to be the case. It's a concerted effort across an entire organization. HR has to be on board, administration has to be on board, finance has to be on board. And the IT department more or less should enable, and fulfill all the requirements from a digital transformation standpoint. So again, I'm going to use this particular example that's been floating around in social media. It's an image that was made to look like a survey, and the question goes, which prompted you to fulfill your digital transformation journey? And A is your CEOs, B is your CTO, and C is actually COVID-19. That was supposed to be a joke, and it's supposed to be funny if it wasn't so true. Because most of the organizations, most especially in the Philippines, just began realizing how unprepared they are for particular situations because of what we are going through right now. So BCP does not only affect one particular organization, but it could also impact a country's viability to attract more investments and more businesses. And it's imperative that, to Peter's point, the playbook has to be, number one, authored by everyone, signed off by everyone, and that entails that everybody's going to be looking in the same direction if and when the need arises.
Thank you, Jonathan. So yeah, we have more minutes actually to cater other questions. So in the meantime, while I'm waiting for some questions via chat, since it seems that some of our participants are not able to like unmute themselves and speak up, but definitely they are listening. So maybe we can flash the third question that we have. So again, either Peter or Jonathan maybe could answer, or Jaya would like to, maybe share as well.
Jeffrey is coming
So
on and off mute.
yeah, yeah. So we have here how to leverage automation to provide operation resilience. So yeah, anyone just feel free to say anything about or in regards to this question.
Yeah,
Jaya's,
Nella,
Jaya's
if
off
I
mute.
may, yeah, if I may
Yeah.
just share
Okay.
from the previous question. So I actually agree with both of you, um,
Peter.
Jonathan and Peter. Yeah, sorry,
Peter.
sorry, I have to agree. Sorry about that.
They will only remember one of us, always. Okay?
Yeah.
So,
Yes,
and it
just to be
better,
fair, just to
and
be
it better,
fair.
and it better be me, Jaya. Okay.
Just to be fair, so I remember Jonathan now. I forgot Peter. So now I remember Jonathan and Peter. Okay, so I have to agree with what you said. Probably a short insight. I would say that for most, if not all the industries, we are actually in a business continuity mode now, as in right now. So digital transformation has not affected the business continuity. It is the business model now. Because everyone is trying to continue the business given the situation that we have.
In,
So
in
yeah,
fact,
just
the the jokes that are floating around even within the software industry is that we are collectively as an entire world, we are going for the Guinness Book of World Records for the longest business continuity run
right, right.
in the most recent history, right? I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
used to be when we were planning for storms that we plan for X amount of diesel for our generators that would last us for 3, 4, 5 days.
That's right.
Unbelievable! This is going on for 10 months now. So
Agree. So that's the new business model actually, business continuity. And the faster that we adapt, the better. So yeah, I'll go back to my previous statement before that we have to relearn and really recalibrate everything and do it as fast as we can.
thank you again for your inputs, Jaya.
Thank you
You-
also, Jonathan and Peter. I remember you both
Good.
this
Good.
time.
I've got a feeling that Jeffrey's trying to come off mute because he would like to say something. No? Okay.
he was just teasing you, Peter. So
I hate when they do
definitely
that.
feel free to jump in anytime. If you want to chime in the conversation, we'd love to hear your thoughts. But at the same time, while we're waiting for that to happen, Peter, I think this is more on your side of the fence. So it's about automation. If you still remember the question that Nella showed, so here she is showing it again.
Yeah, so like I said before, the foundational stuff is about understanding those business services. So if something happens, then the next level, of course, is if there's a fault, or that to be able to go and automate the triage, the response, and the remediation. But there's a third part that sits above that, and that's all the people that play part in providing that business service. Many times those people, especially if you're in what I call that messy middle, where you need to bring people in from different departments to, fulfill a request or get something moving through the system. That is the thing that becomes most challenging when you move to a remote pandemic type situation, because those people can't walk up to one another or mention something around the coffee cooler or things like that. So this is now the next opportunity to look at what are the end-to-end processes that people play a part in providing those services to your customers and employees. Look for the touch points, the things that we can automate them, and automate them as you go forward. The other thing is that it now gives us a mandate to start putting in things like service level agreements. So oftentimes those processes that people interact with, it's their best efforts to do something, if they can help out. Now it gives you the opportunity to drive some rigor and discipline across those processes by putting firstly service levels around them, and then start having dashboards and doing deep analytics of those processes, looking what are some of the key KPIs and how you can then start doing continual improvement. So it's firstly about stabilizing those services that need people to do things by then automating them, and then looking at how you can improve them to drive velocity in those processes. Once you start automating the processes, the first thing that you see is a level of efficiency gained. The next thing is that you get insights into the processes. You can look at them with the business lens and look at how those processes are running, looking at the key KPIs of all those different points, and then look to how you can improve each of those. So you can't do any of that unless you understand what the end-to-end process, start automation, getting metrics, visibility, insights, and then doing improvements. It's a great opportunity for organizations to do something that they've been saying they wanted to do for a long time, but never seem to get around to it.
Thanks, Peter. I just want to call out one thing that you mentioned, the need for KPIs. It's often an overlooked aspect of automation, wherein people, when they see things moving slowly along, when they deploy automation tools, they're particularly happy about that without really looking at, is this number one increasing our efficiency? Second, how are the people involved in this entire equation reacting to this? Is it making them better performers and better contributors? And oftentimes when organizations look at automation solutions, they just look at what the output's going to be without fully understanding the beginning, the middle, and the end. And I often say that you can't outsource or offshore a business model that you truly don't understand. And in the same vein, you can't automate a process that you don't really have a full understanding of. And I think that's an imperative requisite in order for you to get the most out of automation.
So I'll give you a real life example that we're doing at the moment. So ServiceNow has probably got 7,000, 8,000 customers which use the ServiceNow platform to automate across IT. So we run machine learning. So as part of that, we run machine learning. We've done that for a long time, and the customer will run it to get analytics. And one of the things that we've done over the last year or so is using a clustering analysis technique on that machine learning, looking at where the tasks are being routed through, matching them up with what the front end request and the back end request is, and using those clusters and machine learning, look for process improvements, being able to go and then saying, well, here's these 30 different types of tasks that are flowing around, and there's a lot of work involved with them, and they take a long time. Why don't we automate them and reduce the amount of time? So some organizations, are getting millions of productivity saving just by using machine learning, looking at clusters of work and automating them. The second part is that we are about to bring out a process optimization tool. Because ServiceNow sees all the tasks in all your processes, the routes they take, we're now able to start visualizing what those processes looks like. We're able to visualize the amount of throughput, the amount of time it has, and then make key recommendations that this process is ripe for automation to be optimized and doing things like that. So it's leveraging the information on the platform, machine learning, process maps to go and do that exact same continual improvement that you were talking about then.
So I'm actually going to tell you a story about one of the largest companies operating here in the Philippines, which is, I'm not going to mention the company name, but they're very strong globally in terms of consulting, IT services, and BPO. So more or less, you have a hint already of, or at least I know, lowered the list of people who are basically categorized as such. And one segment in their in their digital department is just constantly tasked to look over other people's shoulders saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Are these, things the same thing over and over and over again, just so that they could automate particular processes within their organization. So that's how much importance this particular behemoth of a global organization is putting into automation. And right now, it's not just constrained to the bigger players, obviously, because now there are solutions even for micro, small, medium enterprises to look into automating some of the more common tasks that their organizations go through.
So as you point out, the challenge is getting visibility of those processes and capturing the KPIs on a single platform. If you're doing manually looking over someone's shoulder, it's then very, very difficult to collaborate and even move at any level of velocity.
Agree, Peter. Nella, I think we're almost out of time. Or
Yes. Actually, Jonathan, since we have some of the attendees who were able to, catch up on this session, we were thinking, and this just came in to everyone. We have a 200 peso coffee voucher, so you have a chance to, win this prize. Aside from the first that we have showed earlier, the speaker, where 70 USD, and all you've got to do is answer or complete the survey form that we're going to show later. And then may I again invite everyone to share anything, because we have actually one more question. So we're going to extend a few minutes. We have one more question for Jonathan and Peter, and of course to our delegates. Maybe
I have a question for you, Nella. The coffee voucher, is it for a coffee shop in Melbourne?
Oh, that's
okay. I was just kidding. Yeah. So let's proceed to the next question.
Yeah, so here it is. It's now flashed on your screen. So what are the key factors to a successful automation operation resilience? So there is one participant that I'm pretty sure everyone would like to hear from, and I hope she'll be able to speak. Miss Charmaine Valmonte, she is with us now. So if Miss Charmaine is or available to share anything, Miss Charmaine.
All right. Yeah.
Hello,
good morning. Sorry, I'm not actually. I don't have video at the moment. Actually connecting through the phone. With reference to the previous, if you'd show me that screenshot again so I can answer, and good morning to everybody.
Good morning, Charmaine.
Hey.
Good morning. And we were talking
any relationship with Nino?
I'm afraid not.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. If you could share the screenshot again of the question, and I can share some things with reference to our experiences thus far. What are the key factors to successful automation operation resilience? Okay. One of the things that has allowed us to be able to work in this new norm, right? We attribute having the pandemic as the catalyst to getting the business continuity, process, procedure, the whole gamut, that whole program activated in the group. Because of this particular situation we find ourselves in, and now we're going on the 8th month journey of this, which is a great thing. And what we're finding is that the reliance on automation has increased, if not quadrupled, right? Why? Because there are things that we used to do manually no longer can do, and you have to rely on automation. The second is, of course, as we are working from home and we have a less amount of, we don't have that many team members, right? So we need to automate a lot of things because we need the information today. We need the analytics to be able to address things that we weren't necessarily able to address in BAU, right? That may take quite a few days or weeks, right? And it increases the amount of productivity that we have. Now, with SOAR or with automation carries with it the requisite business continuity plan behind it, right? And that entails increasing our partnerships with our service providers, so that in the case your automation does fail, you still have, you know, that there is the backup solution, that you still know how to do the manual processes. And so those things allowed us to be able to look at those processes. And now it's second nature for people because of this new normal that we find ourselves in, right? And now we're already working towards the next normal, right? So that's how important it is. And still, don't forget about the manual processes, but make sure that we automate as best as we can so that we can gain the analytics and be able to learn and build the processes that we need for future in case issues that we may encounter.
And thank you for that input, Charmaine. Coming from you, it's all the more important. Charmaine's representing a very huge conglomerate with several assets across different industries, including probably one of the most digital banks that I'm very so fond of using. So thank you,
Oh, well,
Charmaine.
thank you, sir.
Regards to everyone from your side of the fence, I'm actually quite good friends with some of your folks there. So
Thank you, sir. Thank
uh,
you.
Thank you, Charmaine, Miss Charmaine. And of course, would you like to say anything, Jonathan and Peter, before we move on to the next part of this session?
I think I'll reserve my my comments for the closing remarks, but I'll give Senor Peter here a stand.
Thanks, Jonathan. I think we've covered off most of the things in automation and business continuity. The one thing that we haven't really talked much about is the responsibility of organizational change. So IT has generally never been very good at organizational change. They've concentrated on technology, getting great technology products out for people to use. But the organizational change behind it to maximize and adopt them hasn't always been there. So I've been using PowerPoint for about the best part of 40 years. And I still think that I'm using probably some of the same functionality that I did 40 years ago, because as the new content comes out, there's no real enablement or organizational or cultural change to help me do that. So as these new processes get automated, a big responsibility will be for the leaders in the organization to embrace how they go about doing the organizational change. It is not about just presenting people with new automated processes, new products, new tool sets. It's about helping them understand why they are doing that and enabling them to get the most out of them. Because most IT programs fail not because of technology, many fail because of technology, but it's much higher failure rate because of the failure to do organizational change and get the key people, the key component of the organization, the people, to adopt those things. Just something to be very, very conscious of.
Thank you, Peter. So since we have 5 to 10 minutes left with this session, we are now moving to having or determining the winner of this Bluetooth speaker worth 70 USD. So we have here the QR code for the survey. So I hope everyone could fill that up. And at the same time, we are sending the link through the chat, so you can also use that one. And then in a few seconds, I'll hand over to Peter and Jonathan, or to wrap up or to do the closing remarks, and then after that we will announce the winner. So here is the QR code, and on the chat box is also the link to the survey form. So you can let us know how it went from your end about this session. And I hope everyone had learned a lot from this session, especially that Peter and Jonathan and even Jaya and Charmaine and Eugene has shared valuable insights in regards to this session. And yeah, I can hand over now maybe to Jonathan to do the closing remarks.
Thank you, Nella. And once again, I'd like to thank ServiceNow in partnership with Rockbird Media for allowing me to be part of this again. This is my second time to be part of such a conversation. The things that have been discussed here were quite exhaustive as it relates to the topic of leveraging automation. I think some of the key takeaways here are more or less along the same lines of certain things that you've heard elsewhere. But we can't help but constantly reiterate this. Technology is a very great enabler as it manifests in automation uh, now because it's been magnified that business organizations have to go through this digital transformation whether they like it or not. Uh, in today's day and age, I think that would be uh, not only the big differentiator, but it is a means for survival. But let's not forget about all the basics in terms of how we should run our businesses and the importance of the people that make up your respective organizations. So once again, I'd like to thank everyone who has spent time with us this morning, especially my good friend here, Peter, who I'm going to hand the screen over to for his closing remarks. Maraming salamat po sa inyo lahat.
Thanks, Jonathan. So I think we covered a great deal of stuff here today. And what I always go back to in times of change or uncertainty, it's like a sporting team or a sporting event. In adversity, you've got to fall back on your fundamentals and you've got to build from those fundamentals. So when you talk about business service resilience, you can only get business service resilience if you firstly understand what those business services are. Understand what the technology that goes to provide that, the processes that go to provide that, and the people that go to provide that. Once you understand that, you're in a very powerful position to respond to anything that impacts that business service, and also to be able to go and automate and make it much more efficient. So we've talked about a lot of the tools today about being able to, from an IT perspective, especially be able to understand all the infrastructure that supports the business service and having the central place. Whether that business service resides on your on-prem systems in your data center, whether it resides on cloud, public cloud, or it's some hybrid model of the two, you must have that stored somewhere. So if business continuity needs to come into play, you know how to go and do that. And then you need to be able to manage and respond to all the defaults and the incidents and the requests that come across that. And look to, wherever possible, look to where you can optimize it. Use machine learning, using clustering analysis, deep analytics to look for optimization opportunities, and then go and place the automation against those sort of things. So we've covered all those sort of things today. So I think it's important to, fall back to your basics, understand what you need to do, then have a game plan against it, and then run with that game plan.
Thank you so much, Peter. And so now we have determined the winner of the prize. So congratulations, Jeffrey of San Miguel. So we are going to get in touch with you. Our team will be in touch with you to arrange for the claim of your prize. And on your screen, you can see now, you may scan the QR code. That's the Now at Work 2020 of ServiceNow. So you may scan the QR code in there so you can see the content. And then, yeah, thank you so much, Jonathan and Peter. Your insights have been very valuable, and I'm pretty sure that all of our attendees have learned a lot from this session with you guys. And thank you as well to our participants who had been with us today. Thank you for taking the time. And I hope to see you soon, and stay safe. Take care. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Nella. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.